Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch today's video. I want to clarify and mostly expand on my very last video that I released. If you haven't seen it, you might want to watch it at least after this, or watch it first and then watch this, whatever, where I talk about the red flag gun confiscation law that has now been put into the National Defense Authorization Act that has been passed by Congress, by the U.S. House of Representatives. So that side of Congress has passed this bill, and because it's tucked into this Defense Authorization Act that's filled with a lot of things that the Republicans want, there is a strong likelihood that it could pass the Senate side also. And that I want to express how dangerous this is, explain it a little bit more, because it seems to be that well, maybe I didn't explain it quite right, or whatever, because from time to time I release a video that you, the listeners, not necessarily trolls, but you, the listeners, don't necessarily agree with, or that it just seems to be controversial. While the vast majority of you, through comments and messages to me, supported the video, I did get quite a few people that thought that I was off base, that I was wrong. I was called a liar several times. I was told that I was disingenuous, that I was clickbait, that what I put in the title wasn't necessarily true. And then I was told that it wasn't a big deal, that, you know, there are several states that have red flag gun laws, and overall there's not really been that many people that's had their guns taken away from them because of these red flag gun laws, and that I'm just trying to blow something up so that I can get a bunch of views. And so I want to not necessarily defend myself, but I want to explain this better and try to help you see how dangerous this is, because this one thing is I believe, part of a greater plan that will, in the end, take away your rights and empower a government to completely take over in a way that has never been seen before in America, and probably much so like what we're seeing in Australia, and maybe even worse than that. So if you'll just bear with me, I want to explain this a little bit better, because I think it's that important. It's not about defending myself. I just think it's that important. Number one, I just want to get out of the way the few folks that said, hey, you know, they have a red flag gun law in this state or that state or my state, and there's only been, you know, just a handful of people that it's been used against. Let me make this clear. I am a hardliner, okay? I'm kind of a no compromise kind of guy. And even if it's just one person that these unconstitutional laws are used against to take their firearms away, then it's wrong. Even if the person is criminal, is mental, is whatever, there is a process to go through to do that. And an unconstitutional law is unconstitutional. It doesn't matter if it's used against one person or 80 million people. Doesn't matter. It's wrong. It's wrong. Wrong is wrong. Okay? And we've got to stop compromising on some of these issues. There's some things that may be worth compromising over, but there are others that are not. You know, compromise, allow evil, it's like a cancer, it spreads. It's like allowing a little bit of leavening in your bread. If you want to keep it unleavened and you add a little bit of yeast into it, it just grows and grows and grows. There's biblical references there for those of you that are catching it. But I'm telling you, there are some things that in my mind, in my heart, that there's no compromise on, and this is one of them. So let me explain what I believe is going on here. To clarify, yes, in fact, there is what we would refer to as a red flag gun law that has been an amendment tucked into the National Defense Authorization Act for 2022. They're not calling it a red flag gun law. You can't pull up the bill and search for red flag gun laws, because it's not. That's not what they're calling it. What they're doing is they're amending military code, stating that, you know, and I'm paraphrasing greatly, that, you know, if a person in the military is, you know, deemed this way, whatever, then you can't own firearms. And I'm not going to go into the great details of that. In fact, another prepper channel, Pinball Preparedness. Sorry, I feel like I got something blown in my eye, so if you'll bear with me while I keep talking. he went into a pretty good video on how crazy it is to take the guns away from military people, personal firearms, when you're sending them out to war with firearms. But that's not the point of this video. Over there, that was at Pinball Preparedness, and many of you know who he is. The problem is that they're setting the stage. Okay, folks, this has been going on for a while. You see, in America, one of the beauties behind our form of government that has been is that we have multiple barriers that protect you and I from evil, from totalitarian, dictatorial, overbearing rule within our Constitution. There are checks and balances, multiple checks and balances. That's one of the beauties behind our forms of government. And one, or actually two, of those checks and balances that may not specifically be in the Constitution, but it is within our form of government, is that the enforcers, meaning the law enforcement and the military, the ones that have the ability to exert force upon the citizens, that they're either localized, like the police are, or they are that they hold their allegiance not to the politicians, not even to the government, and not even to their commanders. That is not where their allegiance lies. They take an oath to the Constitution, a Constitution that establishes protections for you and I. It doesn't grant rights, it protects already known rights. And so that's the beauty of our government. And what they are trying to do with this amendment within the National Defense Authorization Act and other things that I'm going to point out that's happening across the nation is to tear down those barriers. Because one of the things that folks like you and I have said for many years is that even if someone came to power in the United States, whether it be a global union or just one person that tries to take over as a dictator, that the military and the law enforcement are not going to turn against you and I. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to point their guns and shoot you and I, because they're like you and I. They're patriots. Most police officers, and I get it, there are some that are bad, and it's more and more, and let me get to that in a minute, so just don't jump the gun just yet. And most people in the military are freedom-loving, patriotic, constitutional honoring, oath keepers. That's the vast majority. That's always been. And we always know that no matter what happens, that's one of our last lines of defense. That and our protected freedoms of owning firearms. Those are kind of our last lines of defense against takeover and against evil in this nation. And so what they're doing is they're trying to remove one of those last lines of defense. There has been an overt effort starting since the beginning of this administration. I've covered it on this channel and many other people, and it's been in the mainstream news, so you should already know about this, where they have gone in and they've started questioning National Guard troops, and they've tried to figure out, where their allegiances lie, that they're not too much of a patriotic extremist. They have started, bringing in critical race theories and training to officers and even regular military personnel, non-coms, that they to try to brainwash, I guess you could say, or at least re-educate them on what patriotism really is. There are people that have been reporting on this extensively, and there's been numerous people within the military kind of whistleblowing on what is going on, the level of training. They're trying to weed that out. It's no surprise, it's no shock, it's well known that the military is trying to be this woke military, and that they are trying to only now recruit woke people. Their new ad campaigns are encouraging, LGBTQ and left-leaning people. They talk about, people that go to UC Berkeley and protest in these, left-leaning environmental protests, join the military. What they want is they want to remove that barrier, that protection layer between you and evil. And they want to establish a military that's not going to be beholden to a constitutional oath or to a moral guidance. That doesn't have that same moral compass that you and I. They want a military that's going to follow their orders regardless of what they are. And so this, I believe, is setting the stage to weed out more of those. There is more in this bill. Now, I'll admit I have not read it, but I have been researching others that's read it, and I've read some of it. It's almost 1,400 pages. It's a lot of reading, and I'm backed up already on a lot of things. I don't have time to sit there and read 1,400 pages. I wish I did, but I just don't. And I can guarantee you that no one that voted for that read 1,400 pages before they voted for it. What they're trying to do within this bill, and most likely within future things, is they're trying to change military code, military laws, so that if you don't follow orders, if you don't take the thing, if you don't do the thing that we tell you to do, even if it's an unlawful, unjust order, then you're out. In fact, Joe Biden himself, it's been reported that he wants anyone in the military that refuses to get this to be dishonorably discharged. Not just discharged, not just an administrative discharge, but actually court-martialed, because that's the only way you can be dishonorably discharged. Court-martialed and removed dishonorably from the military. That is a lot. That's a big deal. Dishonorable discharges, in the media and in Hollywood, sounds like it's just a normal thing. That's a big deal, to be dishonorably discharged. And that's what he wants. That's what they want. They want it. They want people that follow orders, follow their orders, without question. That's not the kind of military that we've ever had. That's not the kind of military we want. Yes, we instill in our military obedience to its superiors, but it's also always been taught that your supreme superior is the Constitution. And if your oath violates that, if it's an unjust and unlawful oath, then you should not. You have an obligation and a duty to disobey that order. And that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to set up the groundwork so that they can start kicking out the people that are not following orders, so that eventually they can have a military force that will be just a bunch of yes men and yes women that will follow the orders that they're given, regardless of how evil these orders are. Let me get to the law enforcement side, because it all plays into it. There has been an epidemic of sorts in this nation over the last year and a half or so, of the amount of law enforcement that are quitting and retaking early retirement and walking away from their jobs, completely getting out of law enforcement. And it's because of the things that we've been seeing in the news over the last year and a half, especially, and this may not be happening everywhere, but it's certainly happening in the United States, and it's a growing problem where the governments, the local governments that are over police departments, are not supportive of police departments. They're telling them to stand down to criminals, and they're telling them that you have to enforce laws upon innocent, good citizens. And there are a lot of law enforcement officers that are saying, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to set aside and watch people loot and burn the city around me and be told that I can't do anything about it, but yet I have to walk around and arrest people and throw them in jail because they're not putting this on their face. I'm not doing it. There's also a lot of law enforcement now that are in the place in their life where they have to consider standing their ground and not getting this and losing their job. And it appears that there's probably going to be some. So it's another way of weeding out the law enforcement across the United States that would be the most likely group of law enforcement that would actually stand and protect our rights, stand against unjust and unlawful orders, and say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not going around and I'm not confiscating people their firearms. I'm not forcing them to get this. I'm not rounding them up and putting them in cages. I'm not doing that kind of stuff. That violates my oath to the Constitution. They're getting rid of them, and they're replacing them with liberal, woke, social justice warriors. Folks, Can you start to see the problem of why when I made my video the other day about the importance of this red flag gun law that I'm calling it, and many others are, that's been put in this National Defense Authorization Act, of why it is important? Because we are once again seeing this administration and this government as a whole, and obviously not just the administration, when 135 Republicans voted yes on this bill, some that even claim to be really conservative, we're seeing an overt effort to tear down one of the most important checks and balances in this nation. It may not happen overnight. It may not happen by, in a few months. But if we continue down this path, that is a direction that we are going, to where we will eventually have a military force that is not beholden to their oath to the Constitution, that doesn't care about your individual rights. They only care that they're enforcing a specific agenda, an agenda of the left, an agenda of these enlightened, university, whatever kind of people, these elites, this globalist agenda. That's what they're doing. They're trying to establish a military and a police force. I believe this. I don't have any specific evidence, but I believe this, that they're trying to establish a military and a police force here in the United States that feels like their oath and their honor is towards this globalist agenda and not to the Constitution, not to you and I, because that's really, I've taken an oath. I know what that oath is. And even though you may be taking it to the Constitution, you know that in the back of your mind, you're really taking that oath to the American people, because that's what the Constitution is there for. The Constitution isn't basically giving any power and rights to the government. It's there to restrain the government and to establish that these powers are really for the people. The power is within the people. And the Constitution is to restrain the government, to say you're only allowed to do these things. You can only do this. Because in this nation, the power is within the people, and they're trying to break that down with these laws, with these actions that we're seeing in police departments like Seattle and Portland and Minneapolis and more, all over. A lot of these big cities, we are seeing this. Yes, there are certainly some good police officers, good sheriffs that are standing up and saying that I will not enforce these laws. But they're coming for those people. They're not going to sit by and allow these police chiefs and sheriffs to stand up and say, we're not enforcing your unconstitutional, immoral, unjust laws. They're going to get rid of them one way or the other. Just like in the military, these troops, these officers, these soldiers, these Marines, and others that are standing there and saying, I'm not getting this, and I am not enforcing this on other people. I'm not going to be used to round up people, American citizens, and to take their rights away unlawfully. I'm not going to do it. So they're going to get rid of those. That's why this is so important. No, this isn't something like what we've probably seen with other red flag gun laws. This, I believe, is being done. And the evidence that I have is from the things that the president and many others around him, the media and what the military has already done. The top brass in the military, the things that they have said, the things that they have done, the head of the DOD, their actions speak louder than words, folks. And it's pretty obvious to me that their agenda is to remove patriots from the military, and that this is one of their ways of doing it. So I do believe, and I stand by my stance, that this is a very evil thing that is happening, and it may be one of the more important things that's happened in quite a while in this nation, because it's the beginning of even if it doesn't pass this time, it may not pass the Senate. I believe that it will, but it may not. But what they are obviously doing, they are trying to get certain laws and codes changed to remove patriots. And I take that word seriously. Real, true patriots. They're trying to remove them from the military. One of our last checks and balances and last lines of defense in this nation against evil as it tries to take over this nation. So folks, it is important This is important. I don't believe that I was disingenuous in my title. I don't believe I was disingenuous in anything that I said, because it is important, folks. And we should be aware that this is evil and that we are in a battle against evil. We're not just in a battle against a political party or against a president that doesn't know what he's doing or anything like that, or a bunch of crazy lefty lunatic social justice warriors. We are in a battle against evil. We need to call it what it is, and we need to recognize that that's what's going on. All right, folks, thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.